Hi. So, good evening, everyone. There was some technical issue, so we had to start a bit later than what we had expected for. But we are live now, and I'm sure all of you are able to see and react to what we are doing here. Yeah. So I think we are good to go, right? So what we thought today is that let's meet up with all of you, considering that we have exactly 1 month to go for CAT 2023. So CAT, as all of us know, is going to happen on the 26th of November. And we are sure that all of you are well prepared for the test, and you are mentally prepared to deal with most of the eventualities that you are going to come across. But I'm sure that most of you have a lot of questions on your mind as to what should you be doing over the last 1 month, how exactly to maximize your chances in terms of the various sections that are there, and how exactly to be mentally prepared to deal with the actual test, right? So to discuss this, we thought that we'll have a small panel. So we have Hemang sir with us. So Hemang sir is the national chief mentor at IMS, and he specializes in verbal ability and overall strategy, and of course he can shed a lot of light on LRDI and quant as well, I'm pretty sure. We also have Prasad sir with us. Prasad sir, again, I'm sure all of you know him by now. You would have seen a lot of his videos. He will of course put a lot of he'll give you a lot of information on how to go ahead in terms of quant and LRDI specifically, and also a bit of verbal. And I'm also there, so I'm Shashank. I'm sure again some of you would have seen me by now in a lot of videos on our YouTube channel. So I'm sure that all three of us will be able to guide you. Amit sir, I think is busy with something, so he may join us in a while. We'll keep you posted on that. But otherwise, we are good to go, and we can start with the session right away. Yes, Hemang sir, Prasad sir, good to go.
Hi everybody, good evening. Glad to see all of you here. I'm also reading the chat. So, hi Aryan, hi Manoj, hi Shivani. We can get going.
Yeah, hi everyone. Good to have all of you. So let's get started with the session.
Yeah. All right. So the first question that we have here. So again, what we did was we had floated a questionnaire to all of you, and most of you were kind enough to fill that questionnaire and throw some questions at us. Yeah. So the question that we have here at the very beginning is fairly straightforward. What should be my study plan in November? How should I divide my prep hours, and how should I revise the content, right? So again, I will add a few things, and I'm sure Hemang sir and Prasad sir will add a bit to it. So in November, again, nothing heavy duty as such, right? It's very difficult to learn something new and implement it on the day of the test. So I, for one, is not going to recommend you to, or I'm not going to recommend you to start something afresh. At the same point in time, make sure that you have a working knowledge of all the basic questions that can appear at the test. If you haven't had a look at your past CAT papers, it's recommended that you have a look at those. So CAT 17 to CAT 22 are all the CAT papers, the recent CAT papers that have been officially released and are the ones that you should be going through. So do go through all those papers and see what all are the question papers that were classified as easy. So you can refer to the IMS CAT analysis that we do every year. You can have a look at all those analysis and you can see what exactly were the question types that we had classified as easy. And if you are finding it difficult to answer any one of those questions, maybe that is one small concept that you can build into your repertoire. Otherwise, no major concepts as such to be covered in November, if you ask me. How should I divide my prep hours? Most of our prep hours are going to be devoted to mock taking at this point in time, I believe, right? So you have put in the hard yards, you have learned the concepts, you have learned how to apply them. Now is the time wherein you should be getting into that zone wherein you are testing yourself, right? Against the competition, you are trying to figure out what exactly happens in those 2 hours, how exactly to strategize over those 2 hours, and so on. So all those things will basically be the things that you will be working on majorly at this point in time. So if you were going to prepare for, let's say, 4 hours every day and 25 days, 100 hours, if I'm taking that as the benchmark in the month of November, most of the prep hours, 60 to 65 hours will be spent taking mocks. If you are taking 15 mocks, let's say, for example, you are going to be able to revise those 15 mocks for another 30 hours or so, taking a couple of hours per mock for analyzing them. And of course, the additional concepts that I spoke about, which are low hanging fruits, but on whom you are not worked for the last 6 months, 8 months, 10 months, whenever you started your preparation, those should take another 10 to 15 hours when it comes to the month of November. Don't overexert yourself. I hear a lot of people who are trying to set ambitious goals for themselves and are trying to take one mock every day over successive days, or 2 mocks every day, or even 3 mocks in some cases. Don't burn yourselves out. Be in a fresh frame of mind come the day of the cat. You have to peak at the right time. You cannot peak on the 10th of November and then lose steam. So that should not happen. Make sure that you are peaking at the right time and you are enthusiastic about the preparation till the 26th of November. Don't get bored of preparation. And in terms of revision of content, I'm sure some of you would have marked some questions here and there, and would have a repository of questions that you find interesting. In terms of the My IMS portal, so what you can do in that context is there is a way to revise your SIMCATs. There is a way to do adaptive practice for each SIMCAT. So there are these two features that are available on your SIMCATs tab. If you look at the top right corner, you will see the revise feature, wherein you can look at those questions specifically that you have attempted and got right, or attempted and got wrong, or not attempted at all. So you can divide it at a section level, at an area level, and at a status level, wherein you have got it right, wrong, or not attempted. So that one feature is recommended, and the other feature is on the basis of your performance at an entire mock. You have AI enabled practice at a mock level. So even that thing is recommended for you to revise the content that you would have applied at the mock. So that is basically what I have from my side. Hemang sir, Prasad sir, if you want to add something to this. Okay.
Yeah, I think I'll just maybe add something that I did as a student. Maybe that could be something that is helpful to a few people. So I think in the last 1 month, when it comes to revision especially, right, because you have covered so much content, it's not possible to go through all the questions again, but it is definitely possible to go through, as Shashank said, right, that you may have marked a few important questions. The one thing that really helped me was my own formula book, right? So I was kind of noting down throughout the mock season, whatever was going on, if I was encountering any new concept or any new formula, right? So just going through all the formulae again and again, that definitely helps, because you're going to have a lot of questions that are purely formula dependent. So it should not happen that you go to the test and there is a direct question and you're unable to solve it just because you don't know the formula. So when you talk about quant, a lot of revision is going to be revising your formula and fundamentals, because for VRC, RC, there is no revision per se, right? You can go through the mistakes that you've made in your mocks, etc. And when it comes to, again, VA, you go through the errors that you may have made. For DLR also, it's possible for you to go through some of the important sets, something that has appeared on the CAT earlier. So if you go through the past CAT papers, starting 17, 18, 19 to the last year, I think that should be the way to go about revising. But definitely when it comes to quant, I'll do a lot of formula revision because I don't want to miss a single question that is direct formula dependent. Okay, I think we can move forward. We can go to the next question. And this particular question was, again, quite a few students asked this one, which was, what should I do in November as a repeat taker? So see, when you're repeating or when you're taking CAT maybe for the second time or the third time, the preparation that you do in the final month is slightly different, right? So somebody who is taking it for the very first time will be going through some of the content in terms of modules, module 1, 2, 3, 4, would be going through a lot of tests and everything. So the approach that is taken is largely that you do your content, then you take a mock, and then you go back to the content, right? So in your case, what is going to happen is, because most of the preparation is already done, maybe you have taken it for the first time last year, or this is going to be your second or third attempt, most of your prep is already done. So now it's going to be largely about your strategy, right? It's going to be about how much practice you do in terms of mock taking. So the more mocks you take, definitely it will help you, and that will build your content. So I guess Hemang and Shashank sir will also add to this, but then a lot of students who are taking it for the second time or third time are improving their content through mocks. So SIMCATs become a way to improve the content, right? They are not really going back to the books to study the basics because that is already in place. So they're using SIMCATs to improve their content, right? And that is how somebody should look at it. So I will plan on taking as many tests as I can. Of course, that is another question that we'll talk about as to how many mocks or how many SIMCATs we should take. Because maybe doing one per day might be a bit of an overkill. But plan depending on how much you really need, right? So some of you may be okay with say 10 marks, right? Some of you might need even 15 or 20 or even more than that. So you have to plan accordingly depending on how much you want to do. And on alternate days, let's say if you're taking the SimCAT, then the next day you try to improve on the content, right? So if I take a SimCAT today and I realize that maybe time, speed, distance questions based on races is where I'm struggling. So then open your books or go through the practice, the concept videos that are there, or do a few practice questions on that, or do the adaptive learning practice that is there. So use all of these resources and then improve your content, right? So that is something that you'll have to do. So take a test, work on the content, take a test, work on the content, right? So you'll have to keep on doing this. Shashank, Hemang, sir, if you want to add anything to this.
Yeah, no, Prasad, good to go. I think you have covered pretty much everything that was there.
Okay, sure.
So yeah, we can move on.
Yeah. Hemang, sir, do you want to take this?
Yeah. So I think a very common question here, again, people are asking this on the chat also, is should I take a SimCAT every day? What is the ideal frequency? So I think Shashank sir and Prasad sir just touched upon it. My comfort answer broadly would be if you can take a SimCAT every alternate day. So for example, you decide on a Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday cycle. The remaining days in between can be used for analysis for sure. So you figure out the questions that you did not get right during the test, or look for a better approach to the questions. B, you use it to take sectional tests. So for example, if I know that okay, I typically miss the cutoff on the DLR section, then I will use that time to focus on the DLR section, right? And I also like to point out, some of you may already know, but very recently we have done two things. One, for 10 take-home SimCATs, we have also made them available as sectional tests, which means you don't have to take the entire test as a 2-hour test. You can use it only to focus on your specific requirement. And B, we have also launched the AI adaptive practice at the SimCAT level. Now, what does it mean? So, this is specifically true for quant. Okay, what does it mean? Suppose I have taken SimCAT 50, which just got done yesterday, right? Once I launch the AI adaptive corrective practice, what will happen is the AI will look at my attempt through the entire SimCAT, and then it will give me a set of questions based on my performance for the entire test. So, for example, if arithmetic is an important topic, we all know it is an important topic, and I have messed up on certain concepts of arithmetic in that particular test, it will give me a lot of questions around arithmetic for me to practice. So maybe somebody who is at the 60 percentile will see a lot more questions around arithmetic and algebra. Maybe somebody, let's say they're practicing at 99 percentile, he may get certain questions that only he requires. Maybe there is one particular concept on PNC that he needs to know better, or geometry needs to be done better, right? So even that, it can throw up anything between, let's say, 10 questions to even 60 questions for you to make sure that you reach your required goal, right? So sectional tests and AI adaptive practice along with analysis will keep you busy for the alternate day that I'm talking about. Now, like Prasad sir mentioned, that some of you who are taking CAT for the second or the third time, maybe for you a lot of content practice is happening through the SimCATs. In that case, maybe the frequency will still be higher, but I will still not overdo it. I will still stick to maybe instead of thrice a week, maybe I'll go to 4 times a week. And closer to CAT, maybe the last 7, 8, 9 days, I would actually slow down a bit because I need to preserve my stamina for the D day, right? So that would be my answer to the question. Answering some of the questions on the chat. Uh, yeah, so there are specific questions around how to improve on the QA section. So maybe Shashank and Prasad sir can take this up. And slightly off the topic, but a lot of people were asking, are Amit sir and I related as brothers? So both of us share a very rare surname. So because we were asked this question a lot of time, we figured out that we are extremely distantly related. Otherwise, very very good friend. So I always look at Amit sir as my elder brother, but there is no direct blood relationship. Yeah, so that would suffice some of you. Okay. There are a lot of requests for quant. So if Shashank Prasad, if you can throw a light on how to prepare for quant.
Yeah, sir. I think we have that slide also, so we'll be taking quant at that point of time. Uh, I think we can move forward to the next question then. So the question was again, a lot of students ask this that my concepts are very clear, but I'm unable to attempt questions in SimCats, and I'm able to solve questions from the IMS portal, but not during the SimCat, right? So let's understand why that happens. So when you say your concepts are clear, but you're unable to attempt questions on the SimCat, uh, when you're solving it on my IMS, right? So let's say you have your practice questions that are there, or you're doing just some question solving on my IMS. You are solving a particular topic, right? Or you are solving a particular module, right? So let's say, for example, I'm doing questions on percentages. So one after the other, I am seeing questions that are related to percent. When I am solving the SimCat, what happens is, because it is going to be a mixed bag of questions. One question that you see is percentages, the next could be profit loss, the next could be geometry, and so on. So there is some sort of a switching cost that is also there. Plus, you have to make a decision whether this is something that you have done earlier, something similar to that. So am I going to do it or not? Right. So that is something that will make it a little difficult. The other reason also is going to be the pressure situation, because a lot of times when students are solving it in the MyMS portal, there is no time pressure that you have. So though you can see the timer at the top, even if it takes maybe 3, 4, 5, 6 minutes for a question, you are not really thinking how it is impacting your overall score. But when you're taking a SimCat, because you're constantly thinking the impact of a particular decision on your score, that also has an implication on how you are performing. So that is one of the reasons why people are able to do questions on the portal, but they're not able to replicate that when you're actually doing the SimCat. Also, the difficulty, of course, it is going to be different, right? So the question that you see in your modules, uh, a lot of those questions will be easy plus moderate level, a few difficult questions. Whereas on the actual SimCat, you're going to see a lot of moderate as well as difficult level questions. And all of these reasons combined will lead to a situation where you are able to perform offline. So when you're solving questions on, let's say, MyMS, or doing it from your class exercise or practice exercise, but when you go to actual tests, so you're taking a SimCat, that time you're not able to. Of course, the solution to that is to take as many SimCats as possible so that you get used to that situation. I mean, keeping yourself calm and maintaining your composure is something that you will have to learn. Right? And in this last 1 month, that is the skill that you also have to sharpen a little bit. Anything that you want to add, Shashank, to this?
Yeah, so again, a lot of it is in the name, honestly, right? So just because it's called a SimCat, your mind adds an additional bit of pressure to whatever your preparation, and then you feel that pressure. So there are a couple of things that exist. There is this thing called an inverted U theory, right? So it looks like your bell curve that exists, and the axes are fairly straightforward. So increase in pressure versus increase in performance. So it is sort of scientifically proven and researched that as the pressure increases, your performance tends to go up. But after a point in time, your pressure will be detrimental. The additional pressure will be detrimental to your performance. Now, where does that point come differs from individual to individual, right? Some of you might be very excited when you are solving questions in class, and that is basically where you perform to the best of your potential. But after that, more pressure will lead to a decrease in performance. But the thing to understand here is that what is the impact that a bad performance on a SimCat will have on your overall CAT percentile, right? And the answer is there is no direct relation as such between your SimCat performance and CAT percentile. Yes, there is a correlation that exists that we have mathematically figured out. But just because you scored a 60 percentile in one SimCat does not mean that IIM Ahmedabad is not going to call you for the interview. So it does not work that way. So you have to understand that whatever block is there in your head in terms of that mental block that you have, that is what you have to overcome. The point of taking more SimCats is that when you go and take the CAT, you have got so used to the habit of taking a mock by sitting at one place for 2 hours. You have got so used to the interface. You have got so used to the level of difficulty. You have got so used to the timer that the day of the CAT will be as good as SimCat 90, let's say, for example. And that is basically how it works, right? So the whole point is to be conscious of the increasing pressure and to tell yourself that even if you don't do well, it's okay. Nothing is lost as such, right? In fact, you have to be even more aggressive, because now you know that there will be people who will be under all these kinds of pressure and they will end up underperforming. So you are either someone who will underperform under the pressure of a timer, or you are someone who is going to do even better knowing that others will be under the pressure of the time. So the choice is definitely up to you as to how you react to these kind of situations. The second thing is something which is vaguely related to this, but it's called the placebo effect, right? If I don't tell you what it is, and if I just describe it to you, then your perception towards something will be different. So if there is a question which appears at the SIMCAT and also in your courseware, you will find it more easy to look at that question in your courseware compared to the actual SIMCAT. Same thing if I tell you that a certain question had appeared at the SNAP, let's say, for example, or the CET, for example, you will be more receptive towards that question, or you will find it easier to solve that particular question compared to if I tell you that the same question appeared at the CAT or the XAT, right? So our mind makes up more or less of these things, and you will more or less be in this kind of situation. So in fact, I was also looking at the chat, and a lot of people are saying that take home SIMCATs are easier than proctored SIMCATs, and sectional tests are easier than both take home and proctored SIMCATs, right? But that is not the case. The questions are from the same pool. The same minds have created these questions, keeping the same aspirants in mind, right? So it's not as if we are consciously creating difficult questions for SIMCAT and consciously creating less difficult questions for take homes, right? But then again, there is this perception that is built. So it's not like that. A SIMCAT is as good as an actual CAT, and a take home SIMCAT is as good as a proctored SIMCAT, and a sectional is as good as a take home SIMCAT, and your courseware is as good as a sectional SIMCAT. So everything is more or less similar in terms of level of difficulty. Just because the name changes, you are in for a shock. It happens with me as well. If you tell me that this is the verbal ability section for CAT, I will end up getting 10 marks fewer than what I would have otherwise. Tell me the same section is from an NMAT, I might end up getting 100% marks in that section, right? So it works at all levels. You just have to understand that this is something that is present, and you have to just live with that fact and try to overcome this fact.
Okay, I think we can move forward to the next question. So we'll be starting with the area-based discussion. So we'll have a quick discussion on VRC, DLR, and QA. Over to you, Hemang sir, for the VRC discussion.
Sure. So the question specifically is there is a lot of fluctuation in my VRC scores. So see, VRC, and to a very large extent, it will also apply to DLR, where your fluctuations will be a little higher because questions come in sets. So for example, on a good day, I may be able to attempt 3 of the 4 RCs, and hence my score will be better. A day when RCs are a little difficult, or maybe I have interpreted a particular RC, I may attempt only 2 RCs or get a lot of questions wrong because questions are in a set, right? So it is very likely that I read a set incorrectly, read an RC incorrectly, and suddenly instead of a 3 on 4 that I always get, I will end up getting only 1 on 4, right? Hence, because the paper appears in the form of a set, your scores are going to be a little more fluctuating as compared to others. That's point number 1. Point number 2, given the difficulty level of verbal section for the last 2 years specifically, I would say that you will see that fluctuations even more. If I have to give you example from a SIMCAT perspective, SIMCAT 14 and 15 have been very high scoring for verbal because now people have more or less learned, the techniques of, which passages to avoid, which questions to not attempt, so on and so forth. SIMCAT 1 to 13, the performance was not up to the par. If I talk about the entire pool of people taking SIMCAT, the performance was not matching the CAT level. But now 14, 15, suddenly people are doing much better, right? If your scores are fluctuating, I would say you will have to first accept a range in which your scores can fluctuate. So, for example, you can say, okay, if anything fluctuates between an 85 and 90 percentile, I'm okay. That is a normal fluctuation that everybody will see. But if it is an extreme fluctuation, sometimes I score a 90 percentile and sometimes I go down to a 50 percentile. If it is a one-off thing, you forget it as a bad day, and go back to the next test. Even South Africa did really well against Netherlands, but they came back strongly, right? So one-off you can definitely ignore, I would say, at least at this point of time. But if it is a regular feature that your scores go up and down, I would go into the details. So for example, I would look at did the fluctuation come from the RC or did it come from the VA part? That's the first analysis. Second level analysis is there a particular topic that is causing me trouble? So for example, is my score fluctuating only during parajumbles, or is it fluctuating whenever I see a science passage? So that level of detail will tell me which is the area I need to focus on. So that would be broadly from my side. As far as VRC preparation is concerned, there are no concepts to learn, to be honest, when it comes to VRC. So I would suggest you focus more and more on sectional test if you have not done that. So sectional test, take home test as sectional test should be your go-to preparation. Typically, I would want you to solve in that 40-minute duration. Take two RCs that you can finish in about 20 or 25 odd minutes and 15 minutes for the VA section. So taking it as a sectional test to me is the right way to approach VRC from my as of now. If any particular topic is troubling you, let's say the new type of question, fill in the blanks or odd man out or parajumbles, then maybe I'll decide that okay, let me have a look at 50 such questions, maybe from a past CAT, and then take it into a very condensed duration. Maybe within 3 days, I'm going to solve 50 parajumbles and get done with it. So as far as practice content is concerned, I would definitely want you to definitely solve everything from CAT 17 onwards when it comes to the VA section, and uh, so CAT 17 onwards till CAT 22. So that will give you enough RCs. So I'm answering the second question: from where should I solve RCs? So actual CAT is definitely a very good source. If you've already done that, maybe you can look at ZAT RCs, slightly more difficult compared to CAT RCs and more vocab focused, but still a good source. Or I'll go to the GMAT RCs, assuming you have already done with all SimCATs, right? So that would be the prep plan for verbal. A lot of people who are struggling with clearing the cutoff. So let's assume the cutoff is somewhere around that 80 to 85 percentile mark. My advice is pretty straightforward. I would want you to focus on the RC selection, which means once you get your SimCAT results, when you look at analysis, please check the p-value of the RCs you attempted. And please, hopefully, you should have selected the right RCs with a very high p score as compared to the low p scores. So the p-value is going to be my indicator of knowing whether you have selected the right RCs. And just a word of caution that SimCAT 14, 15, the scores are on the higher side. One, I told you, people have gotten used to learning the right trade secrets. And second, I would say, as of now, because we are towards the fag end of October, only the very serious aspirants are in the pool as of now. So currently, at this point of time, maybe the percentiles that you see will be a little lower than what they should have been, right? So, for example, if people who scored, let's say, a very low percentile in SimCAT 3, 4, 5 would have given up by now and maybe focusing on the other test. Only the very serious people are in the pool right now. So, right now, your percentile might be an underestimation of where you are currently standing when it comes to the larger CAT pool. Right? So, that should give you some hope and a good feeling, I would say. Okay. Shashank, Prasad, if you want to please add in.
So nothing from my side on the VRC. I think, sir, you have covered it nicely. We'll move ahead and talk about the quant. So maybe Shashank and I can share this particular question. So the question on quant that we got the most was, it went something like this, right? So I'm studying quant regularly, but there's no improvement in the score. How to get better at quant? Now, let's understand, firstly, a lot of students are scared of quant for no reason. Because of whatever reason. So even before you started your preparation for the CAT, if let's say you are scared of quant, I think you're not completely overcome that particular fear. So that is something that you will have to consider. But also understand that there's no reason to, because first of all, there are only 5 areas. And if you go by the data and you look at what are the numbers that you need to clear the sectional cutoffs or to reach to a certain level, you will realize that those numbers can be achieved even if you have 2 or 3 areas that you're good at. So let's say somebody who just wants to clear the sectional cutoff, even simply having a strong hold on arithmetic should be sufficient. If you want to go beyond that, you will have to add more areas. So if I'm good at, let's say, arithmetic, let me add one more area. It could be numbers, it could be algebra, it could be geometry. And then because of that, you have improved your score automatically. The other thing is, a lot of times students get fixated on a particular method and they keep repeating the same method, even though that may not be even required for a particular question. There are a lot of questions wherein you can use options, you can do substitution, you can scale down the question, you can try few different things out, and you will reach the answer. So not thinking about what is a different approach to a particular question restricts your ability to solve more questions. So I would suggest that whenever you do any particular question, just try to internalize it and see if the method that you have used, was it the best possible method? Now I know that it may not be possible in the remaining time to do this for all the questions that you have done in the past, and that's not even expected. But at least for the SimCATs that you're going to do and the past CAT questions that you're going to solve, for every question, just try to think what is the core understanding behind that particular question. Have I understood that correctly? And is the method, is the systematic approach to solve that question the only method for a particular question? So that will help you to think in different directions and approaches. And it will also solidify your understanding that, okay, this question can work if I do substitution, but it will not work in some other type of question. So that is the thought process that you have to develop. And then, as I said, a lot of students take formulae very lightly. If, for example, somebody here does not know how to find volume of a sphere, and then you're expecting that I'll go to the test and I see a question, I'll be able to solve it, then you're in a problem situation. So I will ensure that I know all the formulae by heart, and at least all the basic question types I should know of all the areas that are there. So when I said, even if you have one area as your strength, you should be able to clear it, that area being arithmetic. You'll have to be excellent at that. Okay? But if you are somebody who thinks, no, for me, I may not be able to solve very difficult questions. I want to do the basic and intermediate ones. So even if you do that across all the areas, you're in a good position. So content-wise, you've covered everything. The remaining part is, of course, the execution, that going on the test day and then being able to replicate what you've studied. So those are the things that you'll have to do. Maybe Shashank can add a little bit specifically with respect to uh, calculations, or how do you handle those? Shashank?
Yeah. So see, in terms of calculation as well, honestly speaking, speed math is slightly overrated. I'm not saying it's irrelevant, but it is slightly overrated. People try to learn all kinds of shortcuts. Maybe they'll practice it for 2 days. On the third day, they forget about it. And again, on the fourth day, you revert to your to the mean, basically, right? You revert to where you were at the beginning. Even now, I'm sure that a lot of you would have learned your speed math techniques maybe 3 or 4 months back, or 6 or 8 months back, whenever you joined. But now you would have reverted to solving it the conventional way. So even if I ask you today what is 31 into 37, most of you will be very comfortable doing 31, 7 ones are 7, 7 threes are 21, and so on, right? So you'll be very comfortable doing that. But the point is, you need not worry about calculation as such, right? Pull out any CAT paper, even the toughest CAT quant section in recent years, CAT 2018, right? If you just look at that paper as well, I'm sure that you will see that the paper was not difficult because there was a lot of calculation that was involved. No, the section was difficult purely because the questions went deeper than usual. So instead of asking you when will the people meet for the first time, they will talk about maybe two people starting at different points in time and then meeting for the third time, let's say, for example, right? So there are these subtle changes in a question that will make you work a bit harder towards the eventual goal. There will not be any shortcuts that you will be able to apply. That is why you will find it difficult and taxing, not because you are expected to calculate 137 into 731, right? That is not the kind of thing that makes quant difficult. So that is one thing that you have to understand. So don't get bothered because you are not being able to calculate quickly. Honestly speaking, on the day of the test as well, I will calculate more or less using the methods that I would have used in my 7th standard or 8th standard, right? That is the extent till which I go. I know a lot of shortcuts, but during the exam time, my reptilian brain comes to the fore, and I will do it the way I have been doing it over the last many years now. So that is what will happen. In terms of not being able to answer the questions that you are capable of course, as I said, you have to be aggressive, right? If you can't be aggressive in a SimCAT, where is it wherein you can show aggression, right? You have to make sure that you are solving as many questions as is possible, right? Even if it's wrong, it's okay. Don't worry about getting answers wrong. With practice, I'm sure you will be able to do things in a better manner. But the point is, you can't feel bad about not doing well at a SIMCAT, right? That is not the point of us floating SIMCATs, right? We didn't float SIMCATs so that some people will feel good about their scores and percentiles, and some people will feel not so great about themselves, and then the good people will end up doing better and the bad people will end up doing worse. And that's not the objective. The point is you should learn from whatever is happening at the SIMCATs. There are 2 or 3 things that you have to look at from a mental perspective. Of course, now is not really the time to overhaul your entire thought process when it comes to math. But there are 2 or 3 things that you should know about yourselves, which has led to the situation wherein you are scared of math, right? So there is a bit of cognitive load that is involved when it comes to solving math problems. Even now, if I, let's say, even to my colleagues, even to my friends, if I just ask them a math question, a simple math question, a lot of them will be resistant so much that they will not even listen to the questions, right? And I also see that happening with a lot of aspirants as well, especially those who are not good at math. So you are not good at math, and if I give you a question, your brain will just shut down and it will say, no, I will not solve this question because I have already assumed that I'm not going to be good at it. So then it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. I have decided I'm not good at it. I'll ask you a question and your brain will show you why you are not good at it, right? And that will again dent your confidence a bit, and that gets you into a vicious circle. Then you see your SIMCAT scores, again it tells you that you are bad. At some point in time you have to get out of it. Now how do you get out of this kind of a thing, right? This is basically where you sort of let go of everything, all the pressure that you have. Worst case, what will happen if you attempt 10 questions, let's say, that you know that you are able to attempt well, right? Worst case, what will happen, you'll get 4 or 5 of them wrong. It's okay. At least you attempted 10 questions in those 40 minutes. From there, attempting 12 questions is not going to be difficult. Just that you have to put yourself in that situation where you're attempting more questions during a test. One day you are going to get those 24, 27, 30 marks, which will take you to say a 90th or a 95th percentile. And that is a good enough confidence booster. So people who are worried about your fluctuating verbal scores in the previous question, if you are bothered by your score going down, I am sure that if your score goes up, you should also be confident about it. So why are you worried about your downward fluctuation? Why are you not positive and kicked about your upward fluctuation, right? So that is the human tendency, that we tend to focus more on the negatives and the troughs than the crests. Make sure that you are in the right frame of mind. Attempt as many questions as you can. I am sure, as Prasad sir mentioned, you will be able to find a lot of easy questions that can be categorized as type A in any of the CAT papers, in any of the SIMCATs, and I'm sure that should give you a lot of confidence. But attempt big is what I would say, at least at the SIMCATs. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. I think let's move forward to the next question. So next is about DILR. I think Shashank, you can start, and I'll see if there's anything that I want to add.
All right. Yeah. So how to get better at DILR? And again, this is a common query. I'm not able to solve more than a set. How to improve set selection? So of course, we are coming up with something very specific to percentiles and the strategy to achieve those percentiles maybe over the next week or so. So stay tuned for a detailed take on this matter. However, for the time being, what I would suggest is if you are not able to solve more than a set, and how to improve set selection are 2 different questions, right? Improving set selection, I'll take first. You have to ensure that you are quantifying things by a bit, right? You're not just saying that, okay, this set looks complicated, that's why I'm leaving it. No, what is looks complicated, right? You have to define what makes it look complicated. Are there too many calculations involved which you think will make it complicated? If I see a bar graph or a line chart, let's say for example, if there are those triangles and circles that are in between 2 points, and I have to assume 90 and 95 ke beech mein hai, let's say, and I have to assume whether it's 92, 93, 94, and my options are, let's say, 23.4%, 23.6%, 23.8%. Yes, then the numbers are difficult and it will make my job a lot more difficult, right? Because the numbers are not helping me in that regard. So you should be able to judge a set based on very quantifiable terms. Now, IMS students, I'm sure you would have gone through those 2 events that we conducted in between. So we had done something called as SIMCAT Suffer at the more or less beginning of your SIMCAT journey. We did something called as Last Mile to CAT last month. So these are the 2 sessions that you should look at and try to figure out how is it that you select questions. For people who are not IMS students, again, to just give you a gist of those sessions, set selection involves a lot of parameters. 3 of them, if you are to look at it, are familiarity with the set. The second thing is the nature of information that is given to you. And the third thing is the type of questions that are asked to you, right? So these are the 3 parameters on the basis of which you can give ratings to a particular set. And the higher the rating, the easier is the set, and you should attempt those sets. So depending on which percentile bracket you intend to be at, you will have to understand which sets to select. So if you intend to be at the 80th percentile, maybe you will be able to get that 80th percentile in DILR by solving 3 or 4 questions, 4 questions or 5 questions. To get that 90th percentile, you might have to attempt one set completely and maybe one question from another set. To get to the 99th percentile, you might want to attempt 2 sets out of 4. So that is the benchmark that you have set for yourself, right? Now, if you are not able to solve more than a set, you have to understand where is it that you're getting stuck. Every set is designed in such a way that there will be a bottleneck that will be present. And in the session that I will be conducting on Saturday, we will look at actual CAT papers wherein we will look at those bottlenecks that are there. So whenever you look at people solving tests, and that's why we do a lot of these live mock solving videos that are there. So if you look at Rajesh sir's attempt or Sunit sir's attempt or Patrick sir's attempt or my attempt, right? If you look at these live mock solving sessions that we do, there you will see that every set will have that aha moment, wherein we will figure out that, okay, this is basically the point where I'm getting stuck. Maybe I will spend 30, 40 seconds, 1 minute, 1.5 minutes at that point. But beyond that point lies heaven, right? So once you cross that point successfully, you are going to get those 4 or 5 questions directly. So you have to ensure that you identify where those bottlenecks are, and you should have so much experience solving DLR questions that you know how to cross those bottlenecks. So the answer to crossing the bottleneck might be as simple as draw another chart, right? So if A can be present in column 1 or column 3, replicate this chart again. In one chart, write A in column 1. In the next other chart, write A in column 3. It's as simple as that. Just sitting and thinking about it and trying to visualize it so that you get some intervention, that is not going to work in most cases, right? Unless you are like gifted. So make sure that when it comes to bottlenecks, you write down those cases. If there are 3 cases, draw it thrice. It's not going to take more than 30 seconds to draw the same diagram 3 times, right? So don't try to overestimate the effort that is required. Just make sure that you are replicating things. It will help you avoid bottlenecks. Uske baad, if there is a bottleneck, let go of this. It's fine, right? But one set is definitely on. Look at any CAT paper from 17 till 22, and I challenge you that you will be able to solve one set in 40 minutes for sure. The second set is the one that makes the difference. And that, of course, comes with experience and the ability to jump bottlenecks. So that is what I would add in this regard.
So just to add to what Shashank mentioned, right? So earlier, if you look at the CAT format, so let's talk about 2019 or 2020, for example, where you had more sets, especially pre-2019, where you would have 8 sets of DLR combined. So the element of choice was more, right? So you had to choose sets out of 8 sets. But now that element of choice has gone down. So out of 4 sets, you have to pick 1 to clear the sectional cutoff, 2 if you want to go to, say, a 99 percentile or whatever. Right? So I would suggest that all of you should take the initial few minutes. Again, depending on how you are at DLR, because if you're somebody who is very good at DLR, then you don't really need to look at all the 4 sets. Maybe then you look at 2 sets and then you decide which one you want. But if you're somebody who is struggling and the struggle is to even do, let's say, 1 set, I would spend the initial 5 to 6 minutes just going through the sets and trying to figure out which is the one that will work for me. Somebody on the chat asked, should I do DI first or should I do LR on the test, right? Firstly, the boundary between the two is presence or absence of numbers. Right? There is some logic in every DI set and there is some data in every LR set. So the lines are kind of blurred. The only thing that we say is if something has numbers, that becomes data interpretation. If something does not have numbers, then it becomes LR. Again, that may not be the accurate definition of it. But I would suggest that, again, there's no such thing as should I do DI first or should I do LR first. It depends on your comfort and it depends on what kind of questions have appeared in that particular slot on that particular day. Maybe the DI is insanely calculation intensive and you are somebody who is not good at calculations. It might be better for you to do the LR set. The other thing can also happen. The LR is very, very tricky. There are a lot of traps and missing information, a lot of cases to be drawn, in which case even a calculation-based DI set should be manageable, considering that you have a calculator. So there will be these parameters that Shashank also mentioned, right? There are the 3 parameters of a DLR set selection. Start working on these things, right? We keep telling everybody to do it. Unfortunately, a lot of people don't implement that. So they know it, but they're not able to implement it. And that is where SimCATs come into picture. That is where the past CAT papers come into picture. That when you're solving them as a test, you will realize that this is the process that you have to follow and just keep repeating that. So initial 5-6 minutes, just skimming through all the 4 sets that are there to identify what's the one that I'm going to tackle first. And if time permits, you can always do the second. If time permits, you can do the third one. So everybody at the end of the day is going to maximize their attempts. But for that, you have to, of course, start with the first set. So choose that set correctly, and that itself will put you into a comfort kind of a situation, right? It will boost your confidence as well. I know how difficult it is to crack DLR, right? Because even when I was a student, I used to struggle a lot with DLR. And it might be demotivating also occasionally, wherein you don't see any improvement, or sometimes you even score declining. In some tests, you will do one set, in some tests, you will not be able to do that set. So it's okay. Everything is part of that learning experience. All of us are on that trajectory, and it's completely okay to not have good scores. But again, follow the process that maybe 5-6 minutes initially, going through all the sets, identifying the easy one, taking 10 to 15 minutes to solve it nicely and get everything correct on that, and then move to the next set. So sectional cutoff should be, I think, the least of your worries once you follow this particular process. We'll move forward for now and we'll go to the next question. Of course, we'll be taking a lot of questions from the chat window as well later. Most of the questions are getting discussed in some way or the other as we are going through the slides that we have. Shashank, another DLR question. So this is on, I would say, building your stamina, about having a lot of conditioning of sitting at one place and solving questions. Shashank, maybe you can start, and maybe Hemang sir can add a little bit on how to build your stamina, build your focus, and maintain it in the last 1 month.
Yeah, so I'll give you a simple example. Let's say, for example, I start walking today, right? I will find it difficult to walk for more than 1 kilometer at a stretch or jog 1 kilometer at a stretch. Let's say I might take 10 minutes to walk that 1 kilometer. I'll try it again tomorrow. I'll try it again the day after. After 10 days, 1 kilometer will be manageable. Might be able to do it in 7.5 minutes, let's say, at a stretch. Then after a few days, 15 days, 20 days, you will be able to do the same thing with 2 kilometers, then 3 kilometers, and so on. Right. So that is basically how you improve your stamina. Biologically speaking, the more you do of something, the better connections get formed, and the more you put it into your muscle memory, so to say. Right. So the more practice you do in terms of your questions as well, you will see yourselves getting better. Or the more you practice a certain activity, let's say you're learning to play the guitar. Initially, you might have to look at the chords that you're playing or the strings that you are trying to strum, right? But after a while, you will be able to do it subconsciously. Your fingers will get used to the sensation of being at a certain place at a certain time. You will be able to make those switches better. Same thing goes with typing as well. Same thing goes with solving questions as well, right? The more the repetitions you do, the better you will be in terms of your nervous system as well. Your nerves will get myelinated and whatnot, right? So all those things will happen. Same thing happens in terms of stamina as well. The more you sort of subject yourself, not a good word, but you subject yourself to sitting at one place for 2 hours, the better you will become at the entire thing, right? And that is why we recommend that to take 15, 20, 22, 25 SIM cards, whatever you can, right? Those many SIM cards before you turn up for the actual test. Because not the SIM card will not just train you for the kind of content that you can expect at the test, it will also train you to sit at one place for 2 hours or more than 2 hours without loss of any enthusiasm or loss of focus, right? And of course, you should genuinely love what you're doing. I never feel like stopping to talk or to drink water or to do whatever when it comes to the live mock solving. In fact, I don't even remember the last time I have had a sip of water when I was doing solving a live mock, right? And if you like doing these kind of things, if you are in that zone, your brain will emit those kind of hormones. You will have a dopamine rush, a serotonin, a melatonin that will be present, which will help you build focus and be excited about what you're doing in general, right? So try to make it a bit competitive. Try to not be anxious about what is going to come next. Try not to be scared about what is going to come next. Try to be forthcoming. You can say that, okay, I have done well in these two sections. I have prepared for 8 months, 10 months, 1 year, 15 months, whatever. Now this is the point in time where I'm going to solve this test for the last time in my life, right? This is the last quant section that I'm going to solve in my life. CAT 24 is of course not going to happen because I'm going to crack it in 23. And so they give it your best shot, right? So that is basically one way of looking at things. After that, even if you are going to look at CAT 24, it's okay. Your brain is not going to punish you for lying to it, but make sure that you're looking at it as if it's your last section, right? And muscle memory works. So make sure that you're taking plenty of mocks. Once your admit card comes out, make sure that you are taking mocks in that slot so that you are used to testing. And that's basically how you build stamina. There is no shortcut to building stamina when it comes to testing. Yeah. Hemang sir? Prasad sir?
I think you have covered most of the points, Shashank sir. I would just say that you have to concentrate for 2 hours, right? So it will help if you are used to concentrating at least for a minimum of 2 hours, uh, and sometimes a little more. So maybe for a couple of times. I'm not saying for each and every SIMCAT. Maybe for the next 2, 3 SIMCATs, as soon as you finish a SIMCAT, maybe you can take one sectional test right after it, so that your mind gets used to the load, the cognitive load that it needs to bear. Or maybe you can look at a few 3 hour test formats. It's available on the portal, so that again your mind gets used to the higher workload. That would be my only suggestion to what Shashank sir has already mentioned.
Okay, I think we'll move to the sort of the last question before we take a few questions from the chat. So this is a question that we had, which was I was getting a good score for a while, but suddenly font has been giving me a really hard time. My scores have reduced, and what should I do to not let my scores plummet in this last mile? I think there will be days when, for some reason, you don't get a good score. But I should know my baseline. I really need to know, even on a bad day, what is the minimum score that I can get. For example, let's say we think of verbal as a section, VRC, right? And you've taken a few mocks. In some mocks, let's say you got a 15, 20, 25. In some cases, you got, let's say, a 30, 35. Now, that tells you that roughly on average, you are somewhere around 25. And on a good day, you can go to a 35. On a bad day, you can maybe fall to a 20. So that baseline of 20 is something that you need to be aware of. In spite of knowing all of these things, for some reason, whatever it could be stress, it could be just the tension that you're going to be facing a test. Maybe it is the first big test that you're taking. Let's say if you're not appeared for the NMAT. A lot of these factors can impact your performance. Just to give an example, so because I saw this question, I remember this particular example of a student, I think at 2019 or 2020, if I'm not wrong. So this particular student who went to IIM Lucknow, she was a very good student, and she had completed all the IMS mocks and everything, all the questions, courseware, all of that. I remember, I think some 2 or 3 weeks prior to the actual CAT, she started reporting low score. So she got like 10, 15, 20 marks less compared to what she was regularly getting. Uh, the reason for that was she was pushing herself too hard. So she was taking a mock every single day. And that is something that even Himangsa mentioned some time back, that maybe taking a mock per day is not a good idea because you're not taking enough rest. A lot of times, I mean, Shashank talked about running or walking. If you suddenly start running maybe 5 kilometers every day, you will realize that after 2, 3 days, your legs will start hurting. That is because you have increased your mileage significantly in a limited amount of time. So I would say that it could be a function of being stressed out or burnt out, or you have taken too many mocks. Maybe every single day you're taking a mock. So you'll have to see what sort of issues are exactly there, right? Because your content cannot be the issue. If you are somebody who was getting good score, let's say in SIMCATs from 1 to 10, and now your score has started going down a little bit, that is not a content issue. Right? A lot of it could be temperament issue. It could be a strategy issue that maybe you change your strategy a little bit, because of which you are seeing some changes, or even the test difficulty, maybe the one that recently was a little difficult. A lot of those parameters could be there. But I would say that there's no reason to get really stressed about this. It's okay. I mean, whatever scores that you're getting, ultimately it is sort of the reflection of that particular test, right? What you have done in that test. It does not really decide what will happen on the actual day. Whatever you have done so far, all of that effort cumulatively has reached a situation where you have a sizable content. Somebody asked, how many mocks should I take in the remaining time? See, all of it combined. If you look at your courseware, class exercise, practice exercise, past CAT papers, SIMCATs, proctored, SIMCAT take home, all of that combined, if you have a significant exposure, if you've done all of these things in place, then you are ready for CAT. So now it's just a matter of going there and executing. Okay? So I would say don't worry too much about your scores, even if it has dropped a little bit. Don't be too hard on yourself. I would say just keep the momentum going and don't get too stressed out about it. Anything that you want to add, Shashank, to this, or Himang sir, if you want to add anything?
Yeah, one thing is I hope you have taken SimCAT 15. That was my only hope, because if you are looking at getting a good score at the test, I think this was probably your best bet. If you haven't, do take it and see what your performance is like. But as Prasad sir mentioned, things change by a bit. Just to add one bit, the team that makes SimCATs is, as I mentioned, very smart. I know you would have experienced it when you look at the questions and the solutions. But the thing is, there is one thing that all of us who are involved in the SimCAT creation, in the videos, the shooting, the analysis bit, one thing that we focus on is that you should have a thorough experience of all the question types that can appear at the CAT, right? Although we don't advertise it, most of the questions that come at the CAT would have appeared at the SimCAT in some way or the other. Now they are not being present at one SimCAT entirely, but you will find a couple of questions from SimCAT 1 appearing at the CAT, maybe with a numerical change, one or two questions from SimCAT 7 that will be appearing at the CAT, a couple of questions from Take Home 117 that will be appearing at the CAT, and so on. So the whole point is the questions not getting repeated will work in your favor eventually. It might not work in your favor from SimCAT to SimCAT, because the same concepts will not be tested again and again at the SimCAT. But if you look at the actual CAT, you will see some questions scattered here and there that we will find at the actual test. So although your scores have plummeted, let's say, it might be a function of, as Prasad sir mentioned, just a bad day at the office. It's fine. It happens to everyone. But then again, you are not losing out on anything. Your connections are still getting formed at the back of your mind, and on the day that when it matters the most, all these things are going to help you on the 26th of November. So that is basically what I wanted to add.
I think we have time for maybe two more questions. So, and then we'll move to chat. Hemang sir, if you can take this one up, which is about a particular range. So a lot of students are stuck in different ranges. We had a lot of questions which are worded like this, that I'm stuck in 20s or 30s or 40s, but I'm not able to go to the next level, right? So what exactly do I do in this 1 month so that I'm able to take a certain barrier, whatever that. Hemang sir, over to you.
Yeah. So yeah, I think that's the theme of the questions on the YouTube chat. So a good question here. See, my first reaction to this, Prasad sir, is we'll have to look at it at a section level, which means, for example, if my overall score is 50, I will look at my sectional breakup. Uh, let's assume it's 15 in each section. And then I'm going to look at it which area is going to give me the maximum return. So maybe in quant, maybe I have not done arithmetic at all. I know it's highly unlikely, but just as an example, maybe I've not done arithmetic, and hence maybe practicing arithmetic for a next number of hours is going to give me two more questions, which is going to give me 6 marks. In verbal, maybe I'm not doing well only on summary questions, so practicing x number of summary questions is going to give me two more questions on the day of the test, right? It is also quite possible that I have not taken enough SimCATs as of now, and hence the answer is that I need to take more and more SimCATs so that I get used to test taking. Maybe and again, that's the theme of the chat, is I do well when I'm not in a SimCAT scenario, which Shashank had already explained in quite detail. So maybe I need to confront my fears, take a few more SimCATs, and then move accordingly. So overall, I would say it's identifying which areas do I need to work upon. That's point number one, and then ensuring that I execute the plan. Broadly, it will be SimCATs, taking more SimCATs, and in quant, it will be a specific topic, either arithmetic or geometry, or maybe even PNC for people who are in the high scoring range. For DLR and verbal, I suspect it will more be about I need to practice X number of sets per day. Maybe I don't know how to crack a 3-set Venn diagram. So I need to practice an X number of sets, so that the next time I see a Venn diagram set, I'm able to, score, let's say, 3 or 4 questions out of the same. So that would be my reading. Broadly, I would say we should not panic. We should just look at the data on the screen and then accordingly decide how do I use my next 30 days to get better. Obviously, the more time spent on CAT preparation will give me the desired results. And see, if you are at an overall score of 20, I don't know whether this specific question referred to an overall score or sectional score. But if it refer to an overall score, I would say if you are around the 20-30 mark, first set up a realistic goal, which means let me cross the 70 percentile mark, let me cross the 80 percentile mark. So that should relieve a lot of pressure, you know. So once I know that, okay, I just need to have 5 more questions right to jump from an X percentile to an 85 percentile mark, that will ensure that I am able to do justice to the goal I have set. If I am at, let's say, a 40 percentile and I just want to jump to a 99 percentile on my next SimCAT, that is in fact going to give me a lot of pressure, and maybe I will not even perform what I am previously used to perform, you know. So managing expectations and practicing SimCATs looks to me the answer to me as of now. Maybe two of you can add to this question.
Yeah, so adding on to what Himang sir said, right? It is going to happen that in some cases you will get stuck and you don't know what to do. For example, in quant, a lot of times it is going to be a function of your content, and the secondly is also going to be about how quickly you're doing this. Because let's say you're somebody who is taking maybe 5 minutes per question. Okay? So to identify a doable question and then doing it, it's taking you, let's say, 5 minutes. Then in 40 minutes, you know the limitation that you're going to be able to do only 8 questions. So if I have more content and I have more speed, I'll be able to do more questions accurately. So I have to think, are there areas where I can improve? For example, I see a lot of students don't do logarithms. So it is one of the topics that is pretty much always asked on the CAT. You will see at least one question appearing from logarithms. And it is one of the topics which has very few concepts. You just have maybe about 8 to 10 formulae that are there, the basic laws of logarithms. If you know that, if you know a few log values, log 2, 3, 5, 10, those kind of things, you will be able to solve most of the questions that appear on the CAT. I would suggest that people look at such topics, such low-hanging fruits as Shashank likes to mention, because you don't have a lot of formula in that and you still be able to do those questions. For example, percentages. Not being good at percentages is not an excuse. You have to know your percentages because otherwise your DI will also get suffered. A lot of questions that involve percentage, increase, decrease, fundamentally linked also to profit loss discount, SIC and everything. If you don't have command on those things, you will suffer. So now I'll have to see whether the issue is content, the issue is speed, or is it a combination of these two. The third issue, which is something that we discussed some time back, was on the fear of quant. Somebody who is scared of quant, that could be another reason which is impacting your performance. But as I said, no reason to get scared. So every SimCAT that I take from now on, I'm going to analyze and see what are the areas that I'm currently missing. What is my potential score? So I may have today solved only 5 questions in quant and I've got, let's say, all of them correct, which is a good thing. But then 15 is not something that I want. Maybe I want to have a score of 20 or 30 or whatever. Now, out of the questions that I could not solve, what was the reason? Why was I not able to solve these questions? Was it because I was not aware of those questions? Maybe I've never studied that concept, or I know the concept a little bit, but I'm not confident, or because I'm too slow, I was not able to even look at these easy questions. The p value that you have for every single question indicates whether you should have done that question or not. A p value less than 30, and let's say you have solved that particular question, means that you are not doing justice to the paper because you have skipped a lot of uh, questions that are in the p value 30 to 60 or even beyond 60. So to put it simply, I'm assuming a lot of you by know how to read p values. Less than 30, it's a difficult question. 30 to 60 I'll just go back to the slide. So 30 to 60 is going to be a moderate question. And then beyond 60 is going to be an easy question. So I'm going to analyze my paper, my performance, and see are there any questions that I'm missing. Once I figure out that, okay, these are the kind of questions that I'm missing, I can work on it. Right? It will be very easy for me to then scale up my score just by identifying what areas I need to work on and improving accuracy across those areas. Okay? For example, in RC, now you know that typically these are the kind of RCs that you don't do well. Now there are two ways. Either you can try to improve on that, or you try to find some other RC which is not from those areas. So let's say you're somebody who does not like to read philosophical passages. But in some particular mock, you had a temptation and you attempted. So you deviated from the process. So now you have to adhere to that process of, again, selecting which RC to do or which DLR set to solve, and then trying to perfect it as much as possible. So if you can reduce time on a particular thing, you can use it for something else. ultimately it is going to be about how many correct decisions you make on that particular day. The more you do it in practice, which is during SimCats, the easier you will find it to do on the actual day as well. But it is definitely possible to push your score by one, identifying the areas that you currently don't know. Second, practicing questions from those areas, identifying those low-hanging fruits, areas where it is possible to improve significantly in a limited amount of time, and then executing that in your sim. So if you keep doing it, I'm sure your score will start improving. And don't worry too much about. And I think a linked question to that, which is the last slide that we have, is on how many questions should I attempt to clear the sectional cut. Hemang sir, Shashank sir, if you want to add to this, or you can just start with this particular question.
Yeah. So whatever Prasad sir said, I also was typing a bit in the chat as well. So people are sort of worried that they're not able to attempt as many questions as they want to. So again, honestly, you have to be a bit aggressive, right? If you are spending time on rereading a question or recalculating things, being extremely particular when it comes to doing your rough work, might be the time to let go by a bit, right? Don't get into the habit of letting go completely, but at least for a test or two, or maybe 3 or 4 SimCats, what you can do is you can just let go of that those places wherein you are being too careful, right? And maybe solve those 2 or 3 extra questions. You never know. Out of those 3 questions, if you get 2 right, 1 wrong, you are still gaining from this entire experience, right? Considering that the rest of the things will remain same. Being able to solve 15 questions under the pressure of a timer is going to give you a lot of confidence. And again, you have to experience that to replicate it, right? If I just sit here and tell you how I attempted 22 questions on 22 in quant, that is not going to be of any help to you. You have to do it on your own. The day you solve those 15 questions on your own in 40 minutes, although 5 of them might be solved incorrectly, it's okay. But you are reaching the last step. You are getting an answer which is among the options and then marking it confidently. That is going to give you more confidence than watching all the motivational videos in the world, right? So you have to do it on your own. Only then will you probably reach where you intend to reach. Otherwise, you will always be in that defensive mindset, and you will get stuck at score X and will not be able to move to score Y. So it's not very difficult to move. So don't worry about it. Yeah. And yeah, this slide is self-explanatory. This is the question that all of you are asking. So someone asked if 65 corresponded to a 90 percentile. Comfortably, yes. So this is what it looks like. These are the scaled scores. To be honest with you, so let's say a 15 in DILR might not be the 15 across slots. Some slots might have a 12 that was scaled up to 15. Some slot might have an 18 that is scaled down to 15. But for all practical purposes, you can assume that these are the numbers, and you can target these numbers accordingly. Yes.
Okay, I think we'll start taking a few questions from chat. We have answered most of the questions in some or the other way. Maybe for a lot of you, we were not able to answer the exact question that you had by taking your name and everything. But then we have been able to cover broadly the whole philosophy that is. If there are any particular questions that maybe we have not covered, or any specific area that we have not discussed, you can ask that question, and we'll see if we can answer it now.
So I saw one question: is maximizing VARC score and just about clearing DILR/quant a decent strategy? I would not be very confident about that, considering my VARC prowess. But again, you have to take a call at some point in time. I'm sure that a lot of us will have one dominant section or two dominant sections, and the third one will be some place wherein we are not very keen on solving questions from there. But then again, you have to ensure that you are hitting that 80, 85 percentile, 90 percentile in that section at least, so that you don't miss out on obvious calls, right? I have had students who have scored 100 percentile in quant, LRDI, but have scored an 80th percentile in verbal. In another year, this person ended up scoring a 66 percentile in verbal. 1 year he got 100 percentile at the CAT, but then he could not get calls because he hadn't cleared the sectional cutoff, right? So being insanely good at 1 or 2 sections is not going to help you much. But of course, you are going to get some calls, I'm sure. But then again, if you have a weakness, try to at least get that 85-90 percentile in that section, so that you are not surprised on the day of the result, right? and you don't feel that, okay, one question if I would have managed, then I would have maybe cleared the cutoff and got call X. Don't have those regrets in your life. But it's perfectly okay to focus on your strong sections and to push yourself in the slightly weaker sections. That is fine.
I'll take a question from that I saw in the chat. Any easier concepts in quants that can be taken up now? Wanted to increase score by attempting 2-3 questions more. I think if let's say you are somebody who has already not done arithmetic will be the area to focus on. Percentages, profit loss discount, SICI, time and work. They have very minimal concepts. And if you do even your class exercise, practice exercise properly, you will have enough content. And I think that is going to be the area that I will focus on. In addition to that, then depends on your comfort, because if you're somebody who likes algebra more, then you can pick algebra. If you like geometry more, you can pick geometry. Uh, just see how many questions you'll have to do before you reach a comfortable position in that particular topic. As I said, logarithms has very few formulae that is involved. Even progressions for that matter. So though the questions could be made a bit more difficult, there are very limited concepts. So how many formula are there, for example? If you look at AP, GP, and HP also, let's say if you add that, there are very few formulae that are there. So I will see, depending on my comfort, I can decide which topics I want to add. And I'll also see how many topics I've already covered so far. Right? So maybe let's say you may not be able to completely master geometry in the limited period of time. Maybe you want to, instead of that, want to do, let's say, permutation formulas. So that's a call that you will have to take. There is no specific answer that can be given for this.
Yeah, and 2 or 3 must-do concepts in quant. One is relative speed. Let's say people moving in opposite directions from two ends, very frequently appearing question type. Mixtures, very frequently appearing question types. Either you mix something or you replace some things. At least these two question types. Averages, wherein you add something to the mix and remove someone from a particular group. Those kind of questions. So these 2 or 3 questions are very frequently appearing at the CAT. Time and work, of course. So 3-4 question types, if you can manage, I'm sure you will find some 6-7 questions to play with, and once you build that confidence, you can solve maybe some 3 or 4 more. That should be of help. But again, no point predicting the CAT paper, right? If you would have been able to predict the CAT, then I would have been very happily sitting on 100 percentile every year. Sadly, we don't have that ability, so it is what it is.
I'll take a question which was on please suggest some tips for improving accuracy in RC. And just to give some thoughts around this, and this is something that I picked from my mentors, that when you read an RC, read and take interest in the topic. See, a lot of times why we are not able to comprehend it is because we are not even interested in the topic. So maybe you see something related to stoicism and you're not even interested, right? So when you read more articles, and that is why we keep telling people when they start their preparation 6 months, 9 months, 1 year in advance, that get used to reading different things. When you read an RC, you have to take some interest, right? Some interest in the topic. I'm not saying that you have to become an expert. You don't have to fall in love with that particular RC. But just taking basic interest, that let me read because I'm learning something interesting. And how would I read if I have to, let's say, take a session on it, or if I have to explain it to somebody in the next 5 to 10? I would pause a little. While reading the RC, I'll read a paragraph, try to understand what I've read, and then only I'll move forward. See, some of the people have developed an ability where they're reading and comprehending at the same time. So they don't have to go back to that particular sentence. But a lot of us will not be those kind of readers. So once you read a paragraph, just try to make a mental image or picture of what exactly is happening in that particular paragraph, and then move forward. Okay? You don't have so much time that you'll be able to write down key ideas in that particular or that particular paragraph. But just think about what exactly it is, and then move forward. So taking that bit of a pause will solidify your understanding, so that when you go to the next para, you now have a base on which the content is being. And then you will see some improvement in your RC accuracy, that is. So reading carefully, reading to gather understanding and derive meaning from something is something that you can try. Okay. Anything else maybe that we can discuss? Pause should be for how many seconds? Okay. Just a few seconds, right? Once I read a paragraph, maybe 5 to 10 seconds to understand, to see if I have understood what I read, and just making an image of what is going on. There's another question: should I focus on the percentile or my raw scores? I will always focus on the raw scores than the percentile. And see, percentile is a good indicator. Right? It's a good thing to have. It's a good data point to see. But ultimately, I have to look at my score. I have to look at my accuracy. I have to see if my question selection was on point. So going through those p-values and then looking at your raw score, uh, and how much you would have potentially scored. Those are the things that I will focus on. So percentile is fine. I mean, it's just one of the data points that is there, but I'll not really get fixated on. So it's okay. I mean, even in one mock I've got, let's say, 92. In the other I've got a 95. It's not really that I've significantly done better in the second one. Okay. If my scores were more or less the same, so I will focus on the raw score and my own accuracy than just getting fixated about my percentile. Should I do reading from Eon right now? Not really. I will suggest rather to do more RC solving now. Even if you do RC solving, you are read those passages by taking interest. So just because you are reading Eon or let's say the New Yorker in the last 1 month will not really translate to a significant improvement in the score. You should have done it like 6 months back. So just understand the limitation that we have a time constraint. The only thing that you can do right now is solving more RCs, which will help you to do eventually well on the test. Okay, I think maybe we have covered more or less pretty much everything that is there. I think we can discuss a little bit on the motivation side of things. And Shashank, if you want to start this, and then Hemang sir and I'll add a little bit, and then we can call it a day.
Yeah, pretty much. I think most of what we said was motivational. So at the end of the day, see, honestly speaking, your scorecard has already been written. They just need to print it. That is the only thing that is left. So whatever you have done over the last many years of your life, I'm not talking about the last 8 months, 10 months, 12 months, whatever. What you had done in your school days, what kind of books did you read, what was your attitude toward math, what did your teacher teach you in your fourth standard, fifth standard. All these things will come together on the day of the CAT, right? And that is basically what is going to decide your result. So the last 1 month that you are pretty much trying to be in a good frame of mind than learning something and suddenly getting lucky that, okay, I learned these 5 concepts and 15 questions came from these 5 concepts and I got a 45 marks. It's a possibility, but the probability is very low, right? So don't worry about too many things at this point in time. I'm sure there are too many voices saying too many things. Anybody with a camera and a presentation or a voice can speak today. And again, this is the irony of the situation, right? There are three of us sitting here and talking about the same thing. But then again, you have to understand yourself. What is it that you want to do in life? Anybody can give you advice. It's up to you as to what you take and what you let go. And at the end of the day, in the exam hall, you are going to be one person who is going to sit there and look at all the questions. There is going to be no Hemang sir to tell you what to do real time. There's going to be no Prasad sir who's going to tell you which questions to attempt leave. I won't be there to give you a pessimistic outlook towards the test. So you have to fight it out on your own, right? So make sure that you use the last month to whatever best you can. Try taking as many mocks as you can. Try working on those basic concepts that we mentioned, especially if you're struggling with your mock scores. Try to have a defensive mindset if you are not someone who is at the 80th percentile. So people who are at the 40th, 30th, 50th percentile, make sure that you have a defensive mindset, meaning that you are solving those many questions that will take you to that 80th percentile. And once you reach that 80th, 85th percentile, once you get that critical mass in terms of the number of questions you're attempting, then you have to go all aggressive and try to get to that 95 percentile as quickly as you can, right? So those are the two broad strategies that will work in this 1 month. And otherwise, of course, stay tuned to all the content that we will be coming up with over the next month or so. And I'm sure it will help you do better than what you're doing at this point in time. Yeah. So that's from my side.
Hemang sir, anything that you want to share?
Sure, Prasad. I would say one thing is your current SimCAT percentile. My favorite rule is halfway to 100. So which means that on the day of the CAT, because typically we'll add more students to the non-serious category of test takers rather than the more serious 99 percentiles. So typically on the day of the CAT, your percentile should really improve as compared to what you see today. So given that you keep up to what you are doing right now, if you're at an 80 percentile right now, you should be somewhere close to a 90 odd percentile on the day of CAT on a general basis. Obviously, there are going to be a couple of exceptions, both positively and negatively. So my only advice is, just stick to it, stick to the task, which is to take SIMCATs and other things that you're discussing in the test, and we should be fine. Post CAT, we are going to have a lot of interesting things. There is going to be GDPI preparation. I would say that phase of preparation is far more fun as compared to the other parts. At least for me personally, GDPI prep is far more fun. So we are looking forward to seeing all of you. We'll be in constant touch even for the next 1 month. So just keep calm, and whenever you feel a little low, we're always available either on Telegram group chat. Speak to your mentor, have a my plan if required, and keep yourself in a good positive mental space, and I think all should work out fine. So I'm wishing you all the best from our side, and hope to see you for all the sessions that follow this particular discussion.
Thanks everyone for joining. If you have any follow-up questions, you can always leave a comment on this particular video. The recording will be there on the IMS YouTube channel. So if there's anything, feel free to reach out to us. Thanks once again for joining, and wish all of you all the best for this 1 month ahead of you. Of course, we'll have a lot of content coming your way in the remaining days as well. And if there's anything, we are more than happy to help you. Thanks everyone for joining once again, and bye everyone.